Well, I hate to sound like a broken record, but it's been a minute, hasn't it? Now, I'm not going to lie, there's a reason, and it isn't great. I've been in a bit of a funk, actually. I'm not really flying, not really participating in the industry, not really inspired, to put it bluntly, but I know I'm not the only one. It's kind of funny, since by all accounts, we're actually coming out of this disaster time and getting the industry on the long road back to recovery. Will it ever be the same? Well, probably not exactly, but who knows? Maybe it might even be better. But I finally started flying again somewhat regularly. Every Saturday around noon, you might find me in a Diamond Star somewhere out over Southern California, and it feels pretty good. But there were a few of those first flights back that felt more than a little uncomfortable and awkward. And I don't like feeling that way in an airplane. And I knew my friend Rob Mark, who you've heard on this show many times and probably read his work too in a little publication called Flying. I shot him a text. I said, hey man, I just landed and I was flying the Diamond Star with my owner friend regularly. It's pretty nice, but it's weirdly stressful at the same time. What do you think? Here's what he said back. He says, maybe because you've placed yourself in a weirdly strange situation of flying airplanes, which, is something you haven't done in quite a long time. Imagine, maybe you'd struggled with the decision to give up on flying and then change your mind, or imagine separating from your spouse for a year and then the two of you changed your mind and got back together. How incredibly awkward would that be? But hey, I'm no shrink, so don't listen to me. Well, I thought it was pretty good. I guess that's why he's the writer. Anyway, I headed out to grab a coffee a couple days later and the phone rang. It was Rob. And we were talking about some content we could record, and we're both strangely indecisive. Actually, maybe even apathetic. And you know what? There's actually a name for this exact thing. It's called pandemic languish. I think that fits. So we decided maybe we should just talk about that then. Anybody want to hear that? Well, I don't know. And if you don't, might as well stop listening now. But don't worry, it's not going to be some long wine fest. It's more of an aviation hangout session where I think we might have finally gotten out the last of the funk from our systems, and now we can finally just begin over again. Maybe you felt like that too. Now, I know, this might be the last thing anyone wants to talk about ever again, except maybe politics, because that's usually even worse. But I usually make a point to steer clear of that on the show as much as possible. Today, though, the conversation we have, it's not about that, although it may kind of border dangerously close at a couple of times. But it's what I call getting it back, like getting our lives back, our inspiration, our mojo, and getting our groove back so we can just put all this behind us as quickly and healthily, it's probably a word, as possible. So I hope you're still listening. Let me know how you feel as we come back to reality.
But it's been quite a topic. You obviously don't get out much or read anything.
No, I haven't kept up with flying or anything for that matter, which is probably why we're talking today.
Well, that is true. And I've actually had a couple of insights on that today. But I just wanted to read you a summary of some research that came from the University of Aberdeen in Scotland. University of Aberdeen research has found that general aviation pilots do not consider stress to be as great a risk to flight safety as other factors, such as inclement weather. This is contrary to guidance from flight school bodies and safety organizations that state that stress can compromise your performance. GA is the largest and the most dangerous category of flight in the UK, and these pilots frequently fly for recreation or business purposes, and unlike commercial aviation pilots, often fly alone. Risk perception and management are therefore key areas of the research vital to improve safety in this group. A team of researchers from the Applied Psychology and Human Factors group at the university set out to examine the risk perception of GA pilots and how this impacts their decision making in relation to takeoff, especially in deciding whether it's suitable and safe. The idea behind this study was to determine whether GA pilots viewed all the various categories of risk equally. And in terms of decision making, they face very different challenges than their commercial counterparts. So the team presented, it's not much longer. The team presented 101 pilots with a series of 12 takeoff scenarios spread across 4 categories: compromised performance, such as the pilot being ill or fatigued or stressed, environmental hazards such as weather, faulty equipment, engine power, noise, airspeed, and missing equipment, their checklists, sunglasses, forgetting to buckle their seatbelts. Pilots were then asked if they would proceed in each of the scenarios and explain their reasoning. The results suggest that not all of our scenarios were judged to be equally risky. The pilots' reasoning for their decisions suggests that although they were aware of the risks of flying while ill or tired or stressed, pilots considered flight to be in stress relieving activity, and so they were less likely to cancel a flight based on being under stress. This is despite guidance from aviation regulatory bodies such as the FAA and EASA that stress can potentially compromise your performance. GA pilots are generally safety conscious, but not all risks are considered equal. The more we know about how and why GA pilots make the decisions and manage their risks the way that we do, the better we will be able to develop interventions and training solutions to improve safety. I just thought that was interesting that they said that GA pilots don't really consider stress a big deal. And since we were talking about pilot behavior, performance, living life, and whatever over this last 12 or 13, 14 months, I just thought it was interesting that they came to that conclusion. We all kind of know pilots say, oh, I love to go fly some night after work. It just really chills me out and things like that. But they're talking usually on a nice clear evening or when the sun is yet to set and they just go zipping around. But in terms of hazards, they don't think that being under stress can compromise them at all. I'm just wondering I realize you just got this dumped on you, but what do you think about stress when you fly?
It depends. I mean, I guess in this case, my first impression is that I'm glad that they said that GA pilots generally would consider it like a stress relieving recreational thing. And so I guess that to the point that you're going to go flying in order to be recreational, then that's the old point of flying because you want to, not because you have to. And when you have to, you got a company or people or whoever like counting on you and frankly paying you to do it. And your whole job is to get them there. Whereas, if it's just for recreation, then obviously you can just as soon not go. And I guess maybe the assumption is, well, maybe I was stressed, maybe I wasn't, but I'm just going to go play around and then I'll be cool. But at the same time, yeah, I mean, I don't know. For me, like stress really makes me terrible at everything, like at life. And, I've noticed that when I'm there's something like off about me, like when I'm sick or tired or, dehydrated or who knows, like I get stupid, like really, really stupid. And, then you start missing stuff when you're going to do a complicated safety sensitive thing. It's probably not a great mix. I mean, if I'm on point, I'd like to think I could wrestle anything with wings onto the ground safely. But I mean, geez, if I'm useless, maybe I'm the one who caused the problem in the first place.
Well, when you say useless, I'm just curious. What is that? What would be that behavior?
Well, I mean, have you ever been so stressed or so something, fatigued or distracted? Actually, my favorite one is probably distracted. Matter of fact, good example. I left my really nice prescription aviator sunglasses on the roof of my car the other day because my neighbor's kid came over and came up to the garage and distracted me when I was putting my stuff in the car, and I drove off, and they flew off the top of my car and landed in the road behind me. Luckily, it didn't get run over, but I pretty well ruined my favorite pair of glasses because someone distracted me at a bad time. And I wasn't even stressed. I was just in a little bit of a hurry. But, sometimes I'll notice I'll start saying things, for instance, like sentences that don't make sense or I'll almost sound like I'm stuttering. Little things like that. Or perhaps you miss little things you normally would have not missed. Like the doorway that you go up, for instance, to get in the tower. Like you turn the handle and push on it, even though it's a pull door. I've been opening that door 5 times a day for 11 years. I know that. But for whatever reason, you're so distracted, you're just making these really silly little mistakes. And most of them don't mean much. But, you get in an airplane, maybe they do.
Well, and I think something that I noticed is that I was driving with Nancy, and I had lost my temper. I did. I was just just generally so fussed, I think we'd call it when Abigail was a kid. They just get fussed. They're just everything just bothers you, the littlest thing. And I was just having a tirade about something, and I was driving, and I knew I shouldn't have tried to make a point about something that was completely unrelated to driving when I was in such a state, but I just couldn't stop myself. And a guy pulled out in front of me, and I luckily was fast enough to turn the car to the right and get out of the way, but I jumped the curb, and it was really kind of boom, boom, boom. And I said, "Oh my God!" I finally pulled over to the side of the road and said, I I had to take a breath. I just kind of like counted to 10, and I said, "I'm sorry. I don't know why I am so stressed out here." And but I'm just saying too that I mean, well, I'm certainly not proud of the fact that I was as dopey as I was. When it's happening to you, you can't usually see it enough to say, okay, I notice that I'm stressed and it's affecting my performance, my behavior. I will stop doing that now. It just doesn't work like that, does it?
No, not at all. I mean, actually, as you talk, I'm thinking of a coworker I used to have who, generally is a good guy. I'd call us friends, but he would have these little moods he'd get into, and everyone around the tower knew it. And when he was in one of those moods, you'd walk past the door of the break room, and you get that, hey, did you see this on the news? And you're like, oh God, here we go. And it was usually political stuff that would do it, but sometimes it was other things. But you get so just bent out of shape about certain things, again, usually political, and it would go upstairs. Like it would leave the break room, come upstairs, and next thing you know, like an airplane calling for taxi was like the biggest a-hole in the world. Like how dare you try to taxi out right now and whatever? And don't you know what's going on in Washington right now? And that kind of stuff. And everyone knew it, and you could feel it. I mean, the tension was palpable in the room, and he knew it. He knew he did it, but he just like would get in these moods sometimes. And you're like, hey man, why don't we just work flight data right now? Things like that. And I mean, everybody has their own little ways of doing it. And like you said, sometimes we know we're doing it and just can't stop. Sometimes we don't know we're doing it at all. But no matter what it is, it's not a great time to go work airplanes, and it's not a great time to crawl into an airplane either side.
Well, that's true, and I guess that's kind of what led to us thinking about talking today. Is over the last 12 months, it's been kind of well, even though I don't know if people are freaking out, but it's been stressful. I think, at least to me, about are you a vaccine guy or are you not a vaccine guy or girl? The stress surrounding that, and the people that believe we're going to stay in for the next 12 months, and other people saying, no, you're crazy. There's nothing out there. There's nothing to worry about. You're just being a big baby. I have found that stressed me out quite a bit. I don't know. I don't know that I'm past it. I think I'm better, but it really it just made me very distracted with the fact that I didn't seem to care about a whole lot of stuff the way I used to. I'm saying in the sense that I was really interested in this, that, or whatever. I just didn't really seem to care that much, and that made me kind of unhappy. And I think maybe it probably made it more difficult, I think, to get past it. I don't know. I don't know if I'm making any sense.
No, I mean, I think that's just kind of what we wanted to talk about, was just the idea that, this last year, I mean, big surprise has been, I mean, unless you live in Florida, probably super stressful for you. And it's funny because never in my life have I ever seen sort of this much divergence in people's beliefs about one issue, but not an acute issue. I mean, I guess the virus is just one thing, but I mean, the virus has just been sort of the catalyst for all kinds of crazy to come out in so many different ways for so many people. I mean, you look what's happened during this pandemic. We've had an election where we've swung the pendulum from really far one side to really far the other side. And, that's made a lot of people very, very upset. It's the opposite of the people who were very upset for 4 years before that. And we've had a virus which may or may not be deadly. It just depends. I mean, who knows? Maybe you don't even know you have it. Maybe you die slow on a ventilator over a couple months. Who knows, right? Good luck. We've had the idea of, vaccines and whether or not that's, people have gotten pretty crazy about that. There's been the mask issue, the freedom versus your freedom to affect other people. And so many of these things, unfortunately, aren't the normal stuff that we argue about that really doesn't affect you personally on the daily. Like, you may have really strong political beliefs about, I don't know, immigration reform or something like that, right? But most people, that probably doesn't affect that much, except just in principle. However, in a pandemic, these things could actually affect your health directly, right? So, we all go back to our Psych 101 and talk about Maslow's hierarchy, or just, little armchair psychology of, it's hard for me to care about things when I feel like my safety is threatened. And, this thing has threatened people's safety physically, directly to their health, or it's threatened people's sensibilities and just general feelings about the security of life in general in this country, which I think we all would have thought is, one of the best, if not the best countries you could possibly be born in. But, some people I think have gotten real crazy about that this year, or really upset, I should say, about it, based on how they feel politically about how things have gone, and, just so many other things. And, throw in a little bit of police brutality stuff going on in there, a little good old fashioned racism and whatever else. And it's like, wow, this has just been the year where everything sort of you think you knew or you knew has been threatened on a really deep and visceral level. And I would be surprised if anybody would just be like, yeah, no, that don't really bother me. I'm good. My life's the same as it was last year. Like, nobody can say that. So I guess the point is, how has it affected you? And it's interesting that you say that, you kind of just almost don't care about things. And, when we were talking the other day on the phone, I felt the same way. Like, I haven't flown that much this year. I flew twice in all of 2020. And, I don't know, it didn't really seem like the right thing to do. And then also same thing for this podcast. This is the first time I've stood in front of this microphone in almost 2 months. And it's hard for me to make a podcast about something that I don't feel like I'm participating in right now. And luckily, like you say, things are like we're coming out. It's cool. Vaccines are out. People who want them can have them. People who don't can, not, and whatever. But the point is, we can move on. And I think it's going to be different though. Like, it'll never be the same, but I'm hoping that it's maybe even just like a cleared out, better version of the same once time goes on, but nobody knows how long that's going to take. And, I, for one, am happy. Like, I kind of want to have this be maybe one of the last times we talk about the pandemic on this show, but just to finish it off, just, the effect that it's had on us as content producers. And I mean, you're a journalist. I wouldn't consider myself a journalist, but I do make content that people listen to. And, that has suffered. Like, I'm not going to lie, that has suffered. So, here we are moving forward.
I think, I don't know, we're probably going to get some grief over this because I can think of the professional pilots that I have flown with over the years that are going to say, oh, you big baby, get over it. Come on. For God's sake. I mean, okay, you're here, you're healthy. What's the big deal? I don't know. I mean, I don't think, I was going to say, I don't think I need a shrink. I'm married to one. So I think I know the signs. And I've heard some of them that you're really distracted. You seem kind of moody. I look at tasks sometimes that, dig into this story and see what you think and give me an analysis. And I go, I don't want to do it. I think I'm just going to go sit in the backyard and read a book. And I'm almost not amazed. It frightens me a little bit, honestly, that I have felt like that. I'm thinking, wow, what is wrong with me? Is this it? Wow, is this what happens when you get to be a certain age and you just don't give a beep anymore? This is not fun. And yet I know other people, especially people who have airplanes, that are just flying everywhere. And they have been this entire year. You talk to them about, well, how was the reception at the other end? Were people masked, or were they? Nah, they don't wear masks. I mean, it's not that big a deal. And it was bad enough to me when this whole public health issue became politicized, whether you believe in either side. And nobody seemed to be dealing with the facts that I don't know, what did we lose by the end of last year? 500 or 550,000 Americans. That makes me really sad and afraid that I didn't want to be one of them. And I didn't want my wife to be one of them, or my in-laws, or my daughter, or even any of my friends. Although some of them did get it, I had one that passed from COVID a month or two ago, and it's hard to understand, for me at least, how this could not make you reflective of, wow, what the hell is going on in the world? Because this has been everywhere. And what do we do about it? As opposed to the people that say, forget it. If you're going to get sick, you're going to get sick. It happens. I'm not that fatalistic, and I'm not that kind of a risk manager. But I'm amazed at the people who are, that jump into airplanes. Kind of like what we were talking about earlier about the University of Aberdeen study that said GA pilots don't see anything stressful. They don't deal with stress the same way. And stress it screws you up. It's like when you're tired, you don't know that you're fatigued. Most people don't. But the research has proven that, I think, when you're 2 or 3 days out of your normal sleep amount, you're already acting like you're at 0.15 or something on the drunk driver scale. And you wouldn't know that because you think you're fine. And I've wondered about the pandemic, and not whether you believe where it came from or who supported it or who didn't, but do you honestly believe that this entire year of watching all these people in the world die has had no effect on what you think about during the day, during, at night, your dreams, when you're driving, when you're flying? I think that's crazy.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know how it could not affect you deeply. I mean, this is not just even, I mean, if that amount of death isn't enough for you, then, the idea that, I mean, look at how this whole issue has divided so many people. I mean, everything has gotten very, very extreme. No thanks to social media. And, it's just tough to be around, like nobody wants to talk about this. No one wants to hear about it. I mean, everyone just wants out. And me too, me too, of course. But it's crazy that, anybody could just be like cavalier about it. And I think that that's really more of just like the, sort of the ostrich thing. Like, if just, it's like you're burying your head in the sand, but out in the open at the same time. But I think what this is really, like the bigger point that we're trying to talk about here, is that this is just an existential crisis. Like this is just, it has threatened everyone's existence, from whether you believe that it could kill you, like actually kill you off of the earth, and then you don't exist, which it might, probably won't, but it could. Or if this is just, even if you don't care about that, just look at the political storm going on in this country right now. Look at the, what's going on. And it's stressful to just think about that happening here on our own soil, the fact that this amount of division and anger is existing. And it's very stressful to be surrounded by that, because everybody has a strong opinion one way or another on it. And it's just like when you're in a room where, there's just been an argument and it's got that tension in the air. I kind of feel like that all the time. And maybe that's because I live in California. I mean, insert your California joke here, but that's kind of what I feel like. And it's waning slowly. And so here I am standing in front of this microphone again, and here we are recording again, and that's great. But, it just, I think this is very, very much an existential crisis on both a direct literal level and also in metaphor too.
Yeah, and I think, I guess the point I was making that I would support that with is that I've had some really miserable times in the last year where I didn't even want to watch a comedy on the telly because I just, I don't know. It was kind of reminiscent of being in high school when three or four guys would get together and somebody had a car and they say, "What do you want to do?" "I don't know. What do you want to do?" "I don't care. I don't know." I mean, you have no direction, you have no energy, you just want to get through the day. And I realize that makes us miss things. But again, in fact, I was just at lunch today with a bunch of pilots, and one of them was telling me about how he has not taken the COVID shot and he has no intentions of taking it. And he said, but before you judge me, I'm not a supporter of you know who. It's not that. But I think that is the problem, is that if you took the shot, then you must be to the left. And if you didn't take the shot, then you're to the right. And there's nowhere in between. It can't be fixed. And I know you're a supporter of that guy that's no longer in. So I don't even want to hang around with you. I don't even want to talk to you. I don't want to listen to one damn thing you have to say because you're not one of us. I just have taken that I've taken it very hard over the last year. I have flown very little myself. In fact, I'm going to go out next week with another instructor. I mean, I'm not even 90-day current. So I want to go, but I want somebody with me. I really do, because I'm just afraid I'm going to do something stupid. I just feel like it's been a very, very hard year on my brain, on my emotions, on all the things that we used to find joy and happiness in. I mean, you can still play with your kids and have a good time in the basement or what. Do you guys have basements in California?
No, but I have a loft.
Okay, well, yeah, you go in the loft. You know, when you have a good time, you go, that was fun. And then the kids say, okay, Dad, what are we going to do now? And you go, I, I don't know. Should we order something for delivery? Yeah, okay. Should we get a pizza? Yeah, okay, that works. And whereas in the old days, you'd have said, hey, let's go to, Super Dog, and where they make the real cool hot dogs and they package it with fries, which is a big Chicago thing. And then we could go over to the nature center and watch the whatever. And people say, no, we can't do that. It's closed. And well, could we go to? No, that's closed too. And that makes me kind of cranky, unhappy, and then you have the other people who are saying, "Oh, Jiminy Christmas, you guys did this to yourself. You shut the whole darn country down over nothing. A couple of people got sick. It's no worse than the flu." Okay, but even the fact that we're arguing about that, if I look at anything that was beneficial, it was that most of the time I was smart enough to say, you know what? I really don't belong in an airplane. I really do not want to be there right now because I just don't feel like my brain would be there 100%. I mean, if there are people that are absolutely 100% sure that they are, good for you. And especially the professional pilots, good. I'm just so glad for that. But I'm one of those guys that took this a little more emotionally, and thank God I didn't get in an airplane. But I was just going to follow up with one thing, though, that I thought was important. I may have mentioned I had lunch with some of the guys at the airport today. Well, actually, a couple of ladies, too. And we all started chatting, and everybody's been vaccinated. And so, we felt comfortable not wearing masks. And we ordered some food, and we got together. There were 6 or 8 of us, and telling stories and jokes and complaining about the airport manager and all the stuff you do when you have free time. And the sun was out. It was nice. And by the time I left, about an hour and a half later, I breathed a little bit. Like the first time, I just kind of said, I'm glad I did this. I'm glad I got out here this week. I haven't been here in 2 or 3 weeks, and I breathed a little better. And somebody said, hey, you want to go flying next week? And I said, absolutely. You're an instructor. You're going to fly with me. But I felt better. And I'm sure that that's what's going to happen when the world starts to open up a little bit again. We're not there yet. I don't think. Look at, as we're recording this, look at the unbelievable increase infections and deaths in India. Unbelievable. They've beaten the United States at our worst day. Whether we'd like it to or not, it's not going to go away. But what can we do to help ourselves? Just help ourselves remember how to have a good time. Remember the joy or the pleasure when I mean, I think back, when I think of you, Brandon, I think of that Concord series. I have pointed that out so many times to people, like, oh, this was a kick-ass series of podcasts, man. It really was. And I've showed it to I don't know how many people, because it was really good. And when you finish something like that, and even if you don't hear a lot from the listeners, you go, yeah, you know what? I knocked that one. That was a home run. And I find that harder to do now. But don't beat me up because I don't feel joyful the way I used to a year ago, because I feel like there's been a lot of shit that's gone on in the last year.
Yeah. No, I mean, you know what it is? I think for me, like there was a while in marketing because I kind of did a little management study in college. I had to take a lot of marketing classes and things like that. And I remember, that was the days when building tribal marketing was what you're supposed to do. Like you're
Oh yeah,
supposed to
sure.
get people on team, whatever it is you're selling. And that was a big deal. And the social media didn't even exist yet, of course. I mean, the internet was popular, but there was no Instagram. So you're sitting here going, okay, well, how do we make people just rave about our product? But that was how it was sold. It was because it was a positive thing. How do we make people rave about our widgets because they're the coolest color, or they're the easiest to get, or they're whatever, some celebrity uses them, didn't matter, right? And that was like you were supposed to make things tribal. But I think now, and you can blame it on any number of different factors, but this tribalism that's happened to me has been the most stressful part, because like you mentioned, well, if you got the shot, then you must be a Biden supporting left-wing lunatic, whatever. Or if you didn't get it, then you're some hardcore alt-right, don't tread on me, rah, rah Trump kind of thing. And it's like, yo, no, that, like, now things, even like what inoculation you get is somehow you're standing there with putting your foot down, your flag down, saying, I'm in this camp. Right. And that is crazy. It's like just the idea of like what vaccine you get suddenly shows, or people are going to take it to be highly politicized and highly tribal and highly so many things. And that's tough, because to me, getting out of this, I think, is getting away from that tribalism. Like, oh, that was your choice to get that, and that's cool. It doesn't actually say anything about you and make a massive political statement. It's just, okay, you don't want to get this thing, so you got a vaccine against it. Like, that's it. The end. But to get away from that, I think is going to be really, really hard. But I think as people get back to their lives and aren't as sort of upset, that all of that emotion behind these little things that we pick up on, I think, is going to go away. And like you said, you just go out and do things. Do things again. You all sat there and took off your mask and felt comfortable because you'd all been vaccinated, and you enjoyed a great lunch with people, and it felt good, and you breathed a little better. And then you're like, hey, you know what? I am going to go flying. That sounds good. And then you can do that. And I think as we all start to build those things back up, it is going to feel better, and the motivations are going to come back, and the apathy is going to go away. And hopefully some of the anger goes away too, the bad emotions. But I think the biggest thing is just to still be responsible, but, let's go back and live our lives again.
Yeah, and I think it'd be interesting if any of the listeners would be willing to record a comment, even if they don't want to use their name, and say, hey, I felt like that too, and this is how I've been trying to pull myself up out of this morass that we've been in for the last year, and it's working, or actually I did this and it didn't do a damn thing. But of course, the one hurdle we have around flying is that pilots have unbelievably large egos, men and women both. They don't like to admit anything that may show them as less than 125% into whatever they're doing. They never lose, that kind of thing. And I personally, I think that's a dangerous attitude, because it's bad when let's say you're on a flight and you're trying to get in someplace and the weather's bad and you go, I really don't think I want to fly that close to that cell. And you go, well, hey, I'm a real pilot. I can handle it. Or you're making a lousy approach and you're high and you're already fast and you go, I can pull this out. Watch. And then, God forbid, kill somebody or that sort of thing. And people ask the inevitable question, why didn't you do something about it when you realized what was going on? And the answer is always the same. I, I don't know. Either they knew and they didn't care, or they didn't realize it. Neither one of which is good. But again, I would just be curious, just for starters, just because you and I started chatting about this, Brandon, that did anybody else feel like this the last year, or are we just two goofballs? I don't know.
Yeah, you know what? I don't I don't I don't know if anybody's going to say anything back. I hope they do. But you know what? Whether they do or not, I know tons of people felt this way. But I also know nobody wants to admit it.
Well, and that's why if they leave you a message, they don't have to use their name.
Yeah.
But I'm almost more interested in how are you kind of working through at this point as we here in the U.S. at least begin seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. And what did we learn? If you
That's a
believe in
good one.
science,
Yeah. What did we learn? There you go.
yeah, that life is not good when you hate me for what I believe. Disagree with me? Hey, go for it. I don't mind. I've lived with that a lot. But when people absolutely just dislike people, they don't even want to be around them. They don't want to hear them just because of one side or another. And I'm a little older than you. In fact, I'm a lot older than you. But I never remember things like that. I could still argue with the guy next door, even though he voted for somebody else, and go, well, okay. Hey, you want to come over and have a beer? And they go, yeah, let's do that, But it's not like that right now. People are so wound up. In fact, I get that straight from the shrink's mouth. And my wife says she has never seen levels of stress in people, in patients, that she has seen in the last year. I just know it's got to be affecting pilots. So I'm just curious as hell. But of course, it's your show, Brandon. You can edit this part out. I'd love to know what you think and what you've been doing to cope with it. Or if you're not, can we tell you jokes? That should help or something. I don't know.
Well, for all the positive ones about what people are doing, I'll be sure to put them on the air. And for all the angry ones, I'll send them straight to Rob at
Rob@jetwine.com.
That's it, Rob@jetwine.com. There you go.
Before we finish, I want to leave you with a joke. Hey, you know what? I saw a moose today on the way to work. And the other guy says, really? How'd you know he was going to work? Okay, so I don't write jokes. Okay? Look at it. It took me 5 times to get that right. So
They don't know that. They only heard the good one.
that's right. I can be spontaneously funny, but not a writer. That's my daughter's job. But now, so what are you going to be doing? You said you started flying some?
Yeah, no, I'm excited. I started flying again regularly. Before the pandemic, I fly with an older gentleman who's definitely didn't want to be in any tight spaces with anybody during this thing, and rightfully so. And I believe his wife actually has some immuno issues as well, so they've been pretty holed up in their very nice home, but we haven't been flying for this last year. So we started flying again as a regular thing, which is really nice. And actually a couple of friends of mine that own an airplane together, we've started flying together too, getting everyone back their instrument currency, including myself, all that kind of stuff. And I look forward to getting back in the meridians. It's been a couple surgeries involved there that got everybody sidelined for a bit, but when they come back, I'll be burning the jet fuel again, which would be nice, and hoping to stand in front of this microphone a little more often too, like I'm doing right now. It feels pretty good. I've missed it, but even just this morning, my wife and I, she's actually pretty into roller skating of all things, and there's a rink that's open of finally, and it's been closed this whole thing, and so we all went down there this morning and had a great time. So we're really getting out in the world as much as we can, and even though the kids' favorite arcade is closed, hopefully not forever, those things will open back up, and we can't wait. We're going to go back and just do all those things we haven't been able to do for so long. And every little thing that we do, even just driving home today, it felt so nice to have gone out and done something like that again. And just that things like that are open again so that you can do them.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to restaurants the same way. We all used to love going to restaurants, and it's been very, very hard. I mean, you folks in California, of course, have it a little different because you can eat outside. Here in the Midwest, we're just coming out of hibernation. For the day that is coming that it will be warm enough to do that, we're really looking forward to it. I mean, I have a wedding anniversary tomorrow. It's my, I think my second, or was it 22nd? Well, I don't know. It's been a long time. But,
just drop the zero. Drop the zero.
Yeah, and but I remember just 3 years ago, I mean, we took a trip to Europe, and we were gone for a couple of weeks and visited some friends that lived in London and up to Scotland. And we had a really good time. Came back going, wow, that was really cool. And this year, we're going to make it to dinner somewhere. And that's about it. But, hey, it's a start. It really is. So I guess I'm saying it. I think it's okay that you feel bad sometimes, even though pilots will never tell you they ever do, because we're all superheroes.
Yeah, especially over a beer in a restaurant.
Or 2 or 3. Hey, so you think you'll make it to Oshkosh maybe this year?
I don't know. I didn't even think about that. Maybe I will.
Well, you better find yourself a trailer to live in. Actually, they are expecting some pretty huge crowds up there, based on what they saw at Sun and Fun last week.
And talk about pent-up demand.
Well, there is. And I know Max Flight from the Airplane Geeks was down there. And so he said, wow, it is so different down here. Because, of course, Max lives in the Northeast, where took precautions during the pandemic and still are. And he said, down in Florida, it's real different. There's nobody down there with a mask. Nobody cares. And so you just need to be ready for that. It's just kind of like going to visit a different society. But we're all going to find out in July. 98% sure that Oshkosh is going to come off, so long as there's not some insanity that happens with this pandemic. But I think it'll come off, and I'm sure it'll be fun. And although it'll be different, it'll feel different. I'm not quite sure how, but I'm almost sure it's just going to feel different.
Yeah. I think everything does.
Okay, so now what? So now do you want to hit the record button and we'll start recording?
Okay, so that's that. And I hope you'll heed Rob's call to action and let us know your thoughts. You can use any voice recording app on your phone or whatever, record something and email it in. Or you could message me on social media or send a good old email, whatever you like. This podcast is listener supported, so if you have the means and you find value in it, I'd really appreciate having you on board as a patron. You get episodes early and sometimes other fun stuff too. And you'll be just like our newest patron, Rahamis Verga. Hope I pronounced that right. Anyway, thank you for your support. And if you're not into the recurring thing, there's a PayPal link there too for whatever you feel is right. If you want to stay sharp on the mic, you can use the affiliate code DELTA, like West Coast Delta, at plainenglishsim.com. It'll get you 10% off your subscription to the best smartphone-based ATC radiocom simulator around. There's a link in the show notes. And as always, I thank you so much for your support in whatever form it takes, and for listening to the show and passing the word along about this or any of your favorite aviation podcasts to a friend. That's all for now. Frequency changes approved until next time, and report back on this frequency for the next episode. Good day.
The Podcasting on a Plane podcast is presented for entertainment purposes only. Brandon's comments and those of his guests, the website's content, and any of the social media, etc., are not part of his official responsibility as a controller or as an FAA employee. The views and opinions you hear on the podcast are his, and those of his guests, and not necessarily that of the FAA. Also, while he's a CFI, he's not acting as your CFI, nor is he your mechanic, your doctor, your shrink, or your spouse. This podcast is presented for entertainment, camaraderie, and fun, but is in no way, shape, or form professional advice or legal counsel. If you're in need of professional advice, get some from somewhere more appropriate than a podcast, no matter how good this one may be.